Hi everyone, welcome to Poetry and Talk. Poetry and Talk is a new online interviewing platform for poets to share their poetry, background, and inspiration. We're so grateful that you've checked in with us today. We have a new guest poet to introduce you to. Please stay connected with us on our Poetry and Talk Facebook page. We have several poet interviews that we've uploaded, and we hope you've had a moment to check some of them out, and we hope that you're drawing inspiration from them as well. We have a great lineup of poets for you these next couple of months, so we hope you'll stay connected with us. Also, if you are a poet and you're interested in being interviewed on Poetry and Talk, we welcome you. We just need to receive an email from you, and you can contact us at poetryandtalk@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you with scheduling and information. Currently, right now, we're scheduling new poet interviews, primarily filling up January of 2021. So thank you again, everybody, for watching. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Poetry and Talk. I'd like to welcome our guest poet, our youngest one to date, Saloni Gupta. Hi, Saloni, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good, good, good. So, welcome.
Could I start with my introduction?
Yes, absolutely, please.
So I'm Saloni. I'm in India, and I study in 8th grade. I'm 13 years old, and I love to write poetry. I love to read novels. I have many hobbies, and I have many other hobbies like my favorite sports, athletics, and hula hooping. Under hula hooping, I've also bagged the India record, and under the title, the maximum number of rotations in an hour. I'd like to start by sharing one of my poems. The poem is entitled as The Trek. Our school took us for a trek as a trip. We had to get to the mountain tip. We assembled at 4 o'clock at the school ground where children chattered and there was lots of sound. It was coincidentally planned on my birthday. We jumped into the bus and saw lots on the way. We then reached our spot at last and ate our breakfast very fast. Left our bags and lined up. My teacher drank coffee in her cup. With our bottle in our hand, we stepped onto the mountain sand. It was clayey, uneven and damp. We went through a small forest by lighting a lamp. Many kinds of insects, animals and frogs. We reached the mountain slope and saw a few dogs. I was excited to climb and I ran up so fast until it seemed never ending and I had to rest at last. On the mountain top, our ears popped. The wind was so strong and there my empty bottle dropped. Around us, everything looked so small. We could almost touch the sky so tall. We sat there looking for a while. A small gap from up here was down actually a mile. It took us many hours. Finally, we reached down and opened the bars. I had a lot of fun. We then had our snacks with a bun. We all played some games so nice. Had our lunch with some yummy rice. We had almost spent our entire day. I reached home and now on the bed I lay.
Wow, that was beautifully presented. Thank you. And that's quite a journey you just took us on. Can you elaborate on that, Saloni, about this poem, please?
Yeah. So this is my poem where last year my school had taken us for a trip to a camp where we had gone trekking, and it was a really memorable experience and I really enjoyed it, and I just converted the experience into a poem, and it was really I was really excited at first when we went for trekking, because this was the first time I went trekking, and it was really fun.
Mm-hmm. Now, this poem was this experience that you had in school. You were very much looking forward to it. You write a lot of poetry, which we'll get into shortly. Did you plan, in a sense, Saloni, that you were going to write a poem about this before the event, Or did you actually, as you experienced it, then decided, okay, I'd like to write a poem about it? Can you just tell us kind of which happened first?
So I just experienced, and I write about anything which, which touches my heart, which is close to my heart, and which is maybe very memorable, exciting, or it might be even that I'm scared of. Maybe a stray dog chases me, and maybe something like that. Any experience, I like to write about my own experiences. And after the experience, I just come home, and then I think I lay down for a while. I'm idle for a lot of time, and then I'm alone, and maybe my mom is in her room, my dad in the other, my sister busy with her school, and I'm in the other room. And I just sit down idle, and I just get those thoughts, and I just make a poem out of it.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you're 13.
Yeah, yeah, I'm 13.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is pretty amazing at 13 to be writing all this type of poetry. Um, Continue. Talk to us a little bit more about the poetry that you write and what inspires you and how long you've been writing poetry as well, please.
So actually my loneliness during, like in India, we have lockdown going on because of the coronavirus, and like my loneliness during the lockdown inspired me. I had nothing to do, and whenever I had to get a break from my online classes and school, so I sat down and started writing poetry. And I actually started writing poetry 2 years ago, when we had a competition at school, and we had to convert a book, this book, The Secrets of Zimbabwe, into a poem. It was really surprising to me at first, because I didn't, at that time, I did not even know what a poem was. So when this competition was told, like I was informed about it, my mom forced me to participate. She always tells me to participate in every competition. So when I took part, the prizes were being announced, and I was very excited. Then I realized I had bagged the third prize, and yeah, here's my trophy. And yeah, I was really happy, and I was really surprised how I could win back the third prize among so many nice poets and people. It was an inter-school competition. So I then began writing poetry, and I realized that I could actually write poetry well. And but then at that time, I was like busy with my homework projects at school, and traveling also took some time. So now that we have a lockdown in India, we have online classes. I get more free time, and I get time to just think and write about whatever I wish to.
Mm-hmm. So you started writing poetry at 11, and it was through school and a competition, and your mom encouraged you, and that was your first time, and then you won the trophy that we're seeing.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow, well, that's quite amazing. So then must have given you a lot of encouragement.
yeah, she did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, the poem that you read for us was very descriptive, and I noticed that you like to use a rhyme as well. Talk to us about what you enjoy about poetry, any aspect, but I'm also interested, Saloni, as well as the actual, words themselves and the word flow and the way that you like to present it. Could you speak to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I have a very particular style of poetry. I prefer to write rhymed poetry. There are many other kinds of poetry, and free verse is also another kind. But I feel more inclined towards rhymed poetry. I have not got hold of the other styles yet. I might learn them, but free poetry is one which is of my interest, and I like to write. Most of the time I write free rhymed poetry. And I actually, in poetry also, I don't write about a particular subject. Write about different kinds, like on maybe it gives a message to the readers and gives some emotions and some feelings to the reader. And It brings out emotions, their emotions, and I write about things which I'm more attached to and closer with, and like maybe things like wildlife, nature. I also write. I also like to give a little twist at the climax of the poem, where maybe I just say I slept or I was dreaming or something like that, which gives the reader like a surprise, and they like that's how my poetry starts. And I like to write about most of my experiences, as I said. Also, I like to write poetry because it touches our mind and heart directly. Also, it has a greater expressive value. They also are an act of pleasure and purgation of emotions. It relieves humans' emotions, and so I like poetry a lot.
Mhm. I'm wondering, I'm speaking with a 13-year-old. You have a very advanced vocabulary and understanding and thought process. Are you aware of that, or does it feel kind of just like you're just being yourself?
And no, I'm just being myself. I don't
Yes.
feel anything.
Hmm. Hmm. Talk to us about some other things with your poetry. One thing that I was interested that you mentioned, Saloni, is that you feel like there's a message in there. And you also, when you're writing, you also incorporate the reader as well. Like you want the reader to be experiencing some things, like you mentioned, some certain emotions. You're sharing these experiences. Touch upon this. What type of messages do you want the readers to receive when they're reading your poetry?
So, as I said, I'm more inclined towards wildlife, nature, and things around me and my experiences. So, I'd like to give the reader a message. Maybe the pain the animals get when they are killed, or maybe something like we should not kill animals, or like about nature, how beautiful nature is. Some message like that I would like to give in my poem.
That's really beautiful, Saloni. So you incorporating being kind of like a voice for animals, for their protection, for not being killed, and also for the beauty of nature and preserving nature.
Yeah.
Hmm. Touch upon some of the things about nature that you've written about, if you would please, Saloni.
So I've written about nature, maybe I've written about wildlife, about nature. We had many competitions in school too, which we had of a wildlife day and many kinds of competitions coming up. So I write about wildlife, nature, and about the beauty of wildlife, maybe like the colors of wildlife and many different things. And that's how I write about wildlife and all nature. And I also write things which I'm attached to, like yeah, I'm attached with nature more often.
Hmm. Now, during the lockdown that you're currently experiencing, are you able to get out in nature very much? What is the situation with that?
So in our apartment, we are able to go down, but my mom fears going like outside, maybe on the roads and streets. But in our apartment, we have a lot of gardens and a lot of nature. So I just roam down, cycle, and just walk down and see the beauty of nature.
Hmm. And then that inspires you to write some of your poetry.
Yeah, that inspires me. And not only that, there are many other things which inspire me. Like once my poetry came in the newspaper, which was also through an editor, and that also inspired me a lot. My teachers, my friends, my parents encouraged me, and they also come in my school magazine, the yearly magazine, and newsletters from a school. So all this inspired me to write poetry.
Hmm. So you've had a lot of accomplishments, just at 13 already, and you've been writing poetry for about 2 years, and it seems like a lot of activity has gone on with that.
Yeah, it's but my poetry journey has not been that long. It has been kind of short, I feel, and but there has been a lot of things that I've achieved within this short span of time. Like my poetry has also come in many books, like Poetic Sensibility 2, and Miscellany of Odes, Split Poetry, and a lot of others which are coming up. um, I also Poetry has also served me greatly in my life. My friends and teachers at school are always enthusiastic and eager for my next poem. They also encourage me a lot, and it gives me recognition, it gives me a lot of satisfaction, and it aligns me on my own interest.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, Saloni, you're doing, school online currently. Are you able, within that curriculum, to share any of your poetry with your teachers and your classmates?
Yeah, my teacher, she encourages me to share my poetry. Like I send her the poetry through, we have a connection. So I send her the poetry, anything which I've written almost every day. I write a poetry and I send it to her. And then during class, she sometimes tells me to read out my poetry to all our classmates. And they all encourage me and tell that this is really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask you, Saloni, okay, so when you're writing your poetry, you're in your room, and it sounds like you kind of like it to be quiet, and you spend that time with yourself and your thoughts and whatever you're writing about. Tell us about the process. Like you have your pen and paper, or you're on your computer. What are some of the preliminary things that happen from the beginning to the end? If you would share that, please.
So when I'm writing poetry, I'm alone in my room. Like I like silence during that time. So I'm in my room and I usually write with a pencil. I like if there are any mistakes, I don't like just scratch it out with the pen. So I take the pencil. I have just a rough sheet of paper. I write down all my thoughts and I make the last words rhyming. I like a particular rhyme scheme, and I make it rhyming so that my poetry sounds nice, and I mix and match words here and there and make it more interesting to read.
Mm-hmm. And how long does a typical poem take you?
So poetry doesn't take a lot of time for me to write down. It just takes me maybe half an hour to 1 hour for a poem. Like I write all poems almost every day, so maybe tomorrow I'd be with another poem of our interview.
Hmm. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So you have a lot to juggle with because you're down, you have your online school, so you have obviously your curriculum with that. You have other responsibilities, other things that you're involved with, and you still primarily, it sounds like you spend almost every day or close to as much as you can, certainly weekly, spending time on your poetry.
Yeah.
And when you finish a poem, what is that like for you? How does that feel?
So when I finish my poem, it feels like I have expressed myself in the best way possible, and I have like if I write it in a story, then maybe people would feel like they wouldn't feel to finish it and read the whole thing, but poetry they'd feel to read the whole thing. And like if I say after having an experience, if I come back and tell my mom it in a story, then she just tell me to go in my room, and she tell me just that she tell me to tell it in a shorter way, because she doesn't like hearing too long stories. She gets bored, and when I write it in a poetic format, then she feels more she's enthusiastic and inclined to the poem, and she's like, wow, did you write it? And yeah, that's how I write it.
Hmm. Do you ever get in a scramble for words, or do you feel like there's a good flow with that? And could you give us an example of a situation where you were writing a poem, what it was about, and was there like a hurdle you had to get over? Was there one aspect during the creative writing process that for some reason was a little bit hard, and how did you overcome that?
Sometimes that also happens. I feel it difficult to write a poem. Maybe I don't know why it happens, but sometimes I feel like I had to cross a hurdle or something. What I do, I just take a break. I just write 2 3 lines, write my thoughts, even if it's not in a poetic format. And I just take a break, maybe, and read my favorite novels and a lot of other things. I watch some TV and release myself, and then after maybe 1 or 2 days, I again come back to the poetic.
So you take a little bit of a break from it, and then you get inspired to go back to it as well.
Yeah, I feel I should not waste any poetry. Even if I've written just a few lines, I can make it longer and longer.
hmm Do you foresee yourself always writing poetry? What are your thoughts on the whole thing kind of projecting into as you're 13 now, maybe getting more into your teens and whatnot. What do you foresee?
I don't write poetry almost every day, but most of the time I like maybe at least 4 times or 3 times in a week. And I write poetry, and it releases my stress, anxiety, and it's like a stress buster to me.
Oh, that's interesting. And where do you want poetry to take you? Is that something you think about, or is that something that is not a relevant factor for you?
So currently, I want to continue to write poems and get them published in different anthologies. In the future, I'd want to see myself publishing my own books of poetry, and I'd also want to see them reach far and wide, not only in India but around the globe, in different places, especially in US. I've heard that there are many, great poets there, and they write beautiful poetries. I'd want to get a chance to visit them, and I want to learn from their poetries and showcase my talent too.
That's beautiful, Saloni. Thank you for sharing that with us. I have to ask you to share with us, this isn't poetry related, but you mentioned before the recording about the hula hoop situation. Can you share that with us? Because that's so amazing. Share that, please.
So you would want me to share about the poetry?
Well, the hula hoop situation. Remember you, with the hula hoops and this, I
Yeah.
think it's so awesome.
So the hula hoop situation, actually, I practiced a lot every day, hula hooping, and it actually took a lot of time for me to get into it. First my sister, she does hula hoop too. So she was trying to break a record, and then I also felt I should be doing something too. And then I started hula hooping. I learned it quite fast, and then I started to hula hoop for very long durations. Then we decided that I would break a record too, and then I made an India record for hula hooping under like I had to do it for an hour. Hula hooping, so, and I had to make 9,000 rotations in an hour, which was quite a bit uh, quite tough, but I tried to do it and I have done it.
That's awesome. 9,000 rotations of a hula hoop. And you broke the record?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations with that. I just wanted you to share that, so thank you. All right, so let's go back to poetry. What haven't we touched upon that you would like to share with us, Saloni?
Um, I'd I'd not like to give any advice to anyone. I feel I'm too young for that. But as I said, I love writing poetry, and I feel it's much better than expressing. It's the best way of expressing ourselves, and we can express ourselves in the best way possible only through poetry, and maybe with rhymed, especially. I feel I can express myself in the best way possible.
Great, thank you. We're going to need to wrap things up, Saloni. We'd like for you to close the show, if you would please, with some closing comments. And then after that, if you would let us know how we can stay connected with you, please.
I'd like to close with a quote of mine. Um, so the quote goes like this: Forget the thoughts of the place you used to be. Let your soul take you to the world you long to see. Let it fly high in the skies and soar. Then you live as you've never lived before. So this is one of my own quotes, and the viewers can contact me through my Instagram ID Saloni_poems. They can also email to me at any time. My email ID is cdc.psn@gmail.com. Me and my mom both access the same email.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Saloni, this has been such an amazing interview, and we're so grateful that you came on and that you shared this with us. And we wish you much, much success with your poetry and with everything else that's going on with you. It was a great pleasure to learn about your poetry and your poetic journey. And again, much success, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please stay in touch with us and let us know how things go. Thank you everybody for watching today. We're so grateful that you've checked in with us. Please stay connected with us on our Facebook page, Poetry and Talk, and be on the lookout for new poet interviews. And please take a moment to check some of them out that are already uploaded. We appreciate your support. Thank you again, Saloni, for the interview and being our guest poet for today. Much success with you. Thank you again, everybody, for watching. Take care. We'll see you soon on the next Poetry and Talk. Thanks again, everyone. Saloni, thank you.
Thank you.